I'm going to try to talk over this. Here's our billet brackets. We're going to install them on a L94, L9H, basically the same motor. I'll show it to you in a minute. These are fully billet machine, anodized black. We're going to have them available in natural finish too. This is the alternator bracket. You can see our cutout for the alternator. We've got an idler over here. You'll see that in the install. This is the power steering bracket. Accepts a stock JK pump or it'll accept a PSC pump. This is the air conditioning bracket and it's two pieces. Now, this is the block plate, which is going to have a couple of countersunk cap head screws going into the block, and this is our main bracket here. On that round pad we're going to have a tensioner, our belt tensioner. Now we're moving the air conditioning back onto the rear groove of the balancer, which shortens the main belt dramatically. We're actually going to about 90 inches from 106 inches. The stock JK alternator will fit right into this groove. You do need to drill out the rear bushing in the alternator so that the bolt can pass through and into the block. But you'll see that we machined it and counterbored it so that that bushing will drop right in. Same thing with the alternator. So let's get going on the install. So here we are with the accessories, the billet brackets, and the hardware. Let's start with the air conditioning. This is the main air conditioning bracket and this is the block plate. These two cap head screws, 10 millimeter, basically bolt the bracket to the block. Let's leave those out for a minute. Once that's bolted to the block, you're going to install your main bracket. This larger cap head screw is going to run through to the block, and these two 8 millimeter cap head screws are going to attach the main plate to the block plate. Your compressor is going to bolt into these two using the original factory bolt. So that's just going to thread in. Alternator. We're going to put one idler, just like GM runs, down here, and that's what this bolt over here is for. This bolt here and this bolt here are going to be where your alternators sit in. The one with the machine tower is going to be where the lugs sit. This is just going to be for the ear. You're going to have some really long, about 140 millimeter, 10 millimeter bolts to run through. This bushing in the alternator needs to be drilled out, a clearance hole for 10 millimeter. And you'll see how easy that install is. Here's our power steering bracket, and if I can, you're going to use your stock factory tensioner, or if you want to replace it, that's up to you. But essentially, this bracket is going to mount just like that. These brackets are precision machined to within a couple of tenths. So if you're running the factory stock Jeep accessories, you should have zero problems. So let's get going on the install. So we're going to install these accessories on this L9H engine. This L9H engine is essentially an L92 with flex fuel. The L94 added AFM. Before we install the accessories, I want to show you how to do the stretch belt, and Corey's going to walk us through that. Then we'll go through the accessory drive installation.
Okay, we got our AC compressor mounted. So to start with the belt, you have to have it on the front of the compressor first. It's got to be behind the balancer and on the compressor. The belt installation tool, it grips the ribs of the inside of the balancer, so make sure it's flush. This walks downward with the belt on the inside edge of it. You just push it down, and there it's snug with tension. So Tommy, go ahead and start moving this clockwise. As we spin it clockwise, the tool is going to come around and it's going to barely skip through the variable valve timing solenoid. You might hear it catch a little. Once you hear the belt snap and pop, it's on. Don't go any further. Now go ahead, Tommy, and spin it counterclockwise to get the tool out. The tool has no room to come forward, so we have to walk the tool back out the bottom. And once the tool's there, our belt's installed.
So let's install these brackets. First thing we're going to do is install the air conditioner bracket. This is our block plate. Let's do that first. So you're going to hold it up against the block. You're going to run these 2 cap screws in. Now what Tommy is doing is he's installing the 3rd bolt just to give the other 2 an index. There is a little bit of play in this bracket up against the block. So by starting that and just using it as a pin, you can then run these other 2 bolts down. Then remove this one. Now we're going to come back, get our main plate, put it right up against the block plate, and you're going to run these 2 8mm cap screws. And then our 3rd 10mm cap screw. Now guys, this is a tremendous improvement over the early setup. Let's get our air compressor. Joey, hold that up there. Now this compressor is a little bit heavy. Get help if you need it. We're using our factory bolts. Your factory AC compressor, and it's going right back where it belongs. You can see that the angle of the AC hoses is about the same as it was originally. We are now driving this compressor off the rear groove of the balancer where it belongs. Rear bracket. Okay, now we're going to do the AC rear bracket. This is a simple steel bracket, 2 bolts.
Oops, sorry.
Now you will notice that this compressor is being driven off the rear groove of the balancer like it was originally. This shortens the main belt quite a bit to about 90 inches from about 106 inches. There is no alignment with these brackets. These are precision machined to within a couple of tenths of a thousandths. The AC hoses are going to bolt right back on. That completes the compressor installation. Now we're going to do the alternator installation. This is our alternator bracket. You notice that we got a idler over here. You see the MoTech logo. That's going to be approximately level when you install it properly. This tower is going to accept the lugs of the alternator. So let's get it installed. So Joey's going to hold it up against the block. Now level the MoTech logo and line up these 2 bolts in the back. You can pre-install the idlers. Tommy's going to snug it up. Now we're going to install the alternator. So you're going to take the through bolt off that goes through the lugs. All right. Okay, so we're going to install the alternator now. Joey's going to drop it into the lugs that are pre-machined. Now you have to install it approximately vertical. If you swing it out too far, clock it out too far, that lower bolt won't go in. Now we're going to put in the upper lug bolt. Tommy's going to snug those down. Now guys, after you're done with an electric impact or whatever you use, go back and torque everything to the proper specs. We have most of the specs in our instructions. Now we are using a nylon lock nut in the back here, so that doesn't come loose, also on the idler, so keep that in mind. Alright, time to do the the power steering, and Christina's going to show us how to clock this tensioner. Now this is a stock JK tensioner. You can use a stock JK tensioner or you can use a Dayco or some other brand, Goodyear. Be careful though, sometimes they have different offsets. If you look at this pulley, I've seen them offset as much as 1/8 of an inch. So after you get the vehicle running, make sure the belt's running approximately in the middle. If not, you can shim it or run a different tensioner. So Christina, let's put that on the bracket and show them how to. There's 2 pins in the back of this tensioner. There's a large one and a small one, and if you look at our bracket, there's a larger hole and a smaller hole machined. So go ahead and put it in. You're gonna drop it in there and rotate it until it drops in. All right, Joey, hold it up there for Tommy. You got 2 bolts that go into the water pump. Just run those down. Now, when everything is proper, you're going to see that this tensioner just barely touches the water pump. Actually, it's not touching it at all right now. It's just off of it, and that's where you should be. When it's running, you want this tensioner to be clocked down at about 6 o'clock or maybe a little bit towards the 7 o'clock position, and as the belt stretches, you'll see that move. So now we got 6 bolt holes in this power steering pump bracket, and we're going to install the front 3 now just for demonstration. So let's grab this pump and 3 of the bolts. Joy is going to drop show me the back of that pump, Christina. You see that there's 3 bolt holes that are going to line up with the 3 bolt holes in our bracket.
And we tap those.
And you need to tap these to 8 by 1.25. Thank you, Tommy. All right, Joey, put it up there. So you just simply slip it in. The outlets go up. Tommy's going to install the front 3, which you do through the pulley. And guys, don't just tighten one bolt down. That's never good practice. Always leave it a little bit loose, and when all 3 of them are in, you can snug them all up.
Butterfingers.
That is, if you can get them. Christina, can you please get the belt? Okay, so Tommy is going to put the rear ones on here, and you might as well just do that with a gear wrench or a combination wrench. Now remember, there's no alignment. If something doesn't line up, you've probably done something wrong. You'll notice that the outlets on this are set up for the stock power steering hoses, so you don't have to replace those. You got plenty of clearance to the frame rail. We've lowered this pump about 3 or 4 inches from our original design for the PSC gravity-fed hoppers. There is no air compressor down here any longer to interfere with the frame. This AC compressor does not get hit by the upper control arm like it would in a GM setup. This is just really a nice design. Okay, now we're going to put the belt on. So Joey's going to grab the tensioner. First thing you're going to do is put the belt on the back side of the tensioner. Now I like to leave it off on this upper pulley until the end, then that's the last thing you put on. And you're done. That's the complete installation. Now let me show you something here. This belt's about 91 inches long, and you can see that it's only driving the power steering pump and the alternator, and of course the water pump. When we were driving the air compressor off this main belt, this belt was 106.5 inches. By moving this compressor back and shortening the size of this belt, we've done a lot of things. We've eliminated some belt slap, tensioner wear, and at really high RPM, long belts have a tendency to have a slack side and have a tendency to come off. So pretty much with this design, you can rev this motor up as high as you want. You're not gonna throw the belt. This belt's gonna wear less. It's a very compact and well thought out design. There's going to be no interferences with your frame on the driver's side. This compressor's right back where it was, so you can use your stock AC lines. This power steering pump's right back where it was, so you can use your stock power steering lines. This alternator's right back where it was, so you can use your original electrical hookups for both the fields and for the feed to the battery. So that is our new accessory drive for the truck engines. That includes the LY5, the LMG, the LC9, the LH6, the L92, L94, and L9H.